All right, guys, now that we have gone through all of our fractions, decimals, percentages, as well as looking at percentages of a quantity, that puts us in a really good position to jump straight into the applications of percentages. And well, I'm kind of lying because there are a couple more steps before we get to the proper applications for things such as discounts, commissions, profit and loss, which we'll go to in the next few videos. But we're in a good place to start making numerical manipulations with our percentages. So looking at increasing by a certain percentage, decreasing by a certain percentage, and things like that, which will put us in a good position for some of these applications. So here, I'm going to go through two examples, one in which we increase by a given percentage and decrease by a given percentage. And I'm going to preface this by saying there are a lot of different ways to approach these types of questions, and you can choose whichever works for you. But I will run through kind of two methods for each of these two examples. So, this first one here, let me do that in color in black. Our first example here, I'm going to look at increasing. So, I want to increase $45 by 30%. Now, before we even get to this, let's just make one observation. Now, when we looked at percentages of a quantity, we looked at some whole number, this, and we applied some kind of percentage thing to it, right? Now, 45 is essentially what we started with. So we can say that this $45 makes up 100%. It is our whole that we begin with. And we are applying some percentage increase to it. Now, hold on to that thought because it'll be important when we go through our second way of working through this. I'm going to go through a little bit of an easier method first, and then I'll show you a little conceptual type of shortcut that you can do, which is risky, but once you can get your head around it, it's very powerful. So what I'm going to do here is, well, first of all, we want to increase $45 by 30%. So we want to first find what 30% is of $45 and then just add that to this quantity, this number here. So that's like saying, well, first, what's 30% of $45? What's 30% of $45? Well, if you watched the last video, you'd know that this is a percentage of a quantity. And this type goes hand in hand with fractions of a quantity. So that's like saying, well, what's 30 over 100? 30 hundredths of $45. And this involved a multiplication because we're multiplying our quantity by the fraction. So that's like saying 30 hundredths multiplied by $45. And I'm going to speed through this a little bit because I went over it a lot in the previous video, but this is like saying 30 multiplied by 45 all over 100, and we will get here 1,350, I should say, as a fraction of 100. And now this, we can just convert to pretty much the whole number because we want to find we want to find what this is in dollars. So I should have actually, I don't know why I didn't add the dollar signs here. But this is like saying there's a fraction of 1,350 divided by 100. And when we do this, 1,350 divided by 100, well, we looked in the previous video and said that this was, all this did was shift our decimal point 2 places to the left. So we can imagine there's a little like ghost decimal point at the end of this whole number. And when we divide by some factor of 10, so 10, 100,000, anything, we can just we can move this 2 spots to the left. And we will end up with $13.50. And that kind of checks out, right? Because 30% is less than half, or just a bit, maybe a bit less than a third of our 45. And this number makes sense. It's within that ballpark. So we can say that this is our correct answer. Now, because we wanted to increase by this percentage, well, all we're going to do is take our original quantity, 45, and we're going to add 1350 to that. And we will end up with $58.50. Let me double check that. Yep, that's all correct. Now, this was a lot of work, but it is an easy way to look at this. We can first find the percentage, well, what this percentage of our quantity, and then just add it here. Now, a quicker way to do this, well, let's think of our $45 as making up our whole, as making up 100%. So increasing this by 30%, that's going to be, actually, let me write here. We have method 1, and I'm going to show you method 2 here. Now, this is like saying we have 100%, which is our original quantity. So the final percentage we're going to get is that in addition to 30%. And we're adding these because this was an increase. So this is kind of like saying, well, we want to find 130% of $45. And by making this link, by looking at our original quantity as just making up the whole, it's the whole that we've stated. We can just think of adding or subtracting percentage, or adding or subtracting by a given percentage as just adding that to our 100%, to our whole. And now check this out. We're just looking for a percentage of a quantity now. So that's like saying 130 hundredths. Now, this is an improper fraction, which makes sense because our percentage is something bigger than 100. And we're taking this 130 hundredths of $45. So we are going to do our multiplication operation here. And when we do that, we will get this is like saying, once we multiply the numerator by this quantity and do it over 100, keep forgetting my dollar signs here, but we will get 5,850 over 100. Now, dividing by 100 here is just going to shift our decimal point 2 spots. And look at what we get when we do that. When we do this number here, divided by 100, shifting 2 decimal places, we get our final answer of $58.50. This decimal place going 2 spots here, we get $58.50, which is the exact same thing that we got with our other method. Now, sorry if this is going to be a long video. Feel free to just speed through. I'm just running through these a little bit slower just so everyone can get their head around it. Now, let's look at decreasing now by a given percentage. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to do it both ways again. But in question 2, I'm going to decrease, let's do this one, $134 by 25%. Now, because I'm conscious of time, I'll work through this a little bit quicker now that you've got the intuitive conceptual ideas from the previous example. So doing this first with our method 1, this is, well, let's first find 25% of 134. And some of you may have picked up that 25% is like a quarter, but I'll do it the longer way in any case. So this is a fraction, is 25 over 100. We're taking that fraction lots of 134. And multiplying the numerators here, we will get 3,350 over 100. And once we divide by 100 on our numerator, we will get left with $33.50. And now we want to decrease. Sorry, I forgot to put this dollar sign here. We want to decrease our whole, our $134, by our 25% fraction. So let's subtract one from the other. And we will end up with 134 minus 33.50. And that will give me $101.50. Sorry, I'm just double checking that on the, ooh, good thing I checked. I'm just trying to do these too quickly in my head. We get $100.50. You can use a calculator to verify that, but that is how we got there using our first method. And now once again, let's look at method 2. And once again, decreasing this, that's like saying this is 25% less than our whole. So 25% less than 100%. So this would be a subtraction, 25%. And we end up with 75%. So now we can just take this fraction of a quantity, which is a little bit easier and a little bit quicker and more efficient. But if the other method, method 1, works better for you, by all means, approach it that way. So this is like saying we want 75% of $134, and writing this percentage as a decimal, sorry, as a fraction, we get 75 over 100, lots of 134, and our numerator will multiply by our quantity and get divided by 100, and we end up with 10,050 hundredths. And when we divide by 100, we will just move our decimal place 2 points to the left, and lo and behold, that gives us the exact same answer as before. It gives us $100.50, which is exactly what we got using method 1. Now, sorry for the longer video. If anyone's still with me, thank you for joining me. And I know I spent a little bit of time on this idea of increasing, decreasing by a given percentage, but this is a vital tool when we look at things like commission and discounts in maybe not the next video, but the following two. So making this link between this percentage of a quantity and the idea of increasing and decreasing is very important. And we will be using it in a real life applications when we look at discounts, sales, earning a commission on a job. These are all important tools that percentages help us to work with and to calculate. So I'll see you there.